descriptions in a different kind of way. From what's just been put in the chart. Yeah, it is. So we need and also, I mean, look in your study notes for those explanations. There's really good explanations and summaries for each of the essences in the study notes too. So yeah, don't just rely on that chart because it is limited to, obviously, because it's of the space. So who else can relate to their family or something, their keynote? You too, yeah?
Yeah, and I looked at my kids and my husband as well, and it's spot on. Yeah, totally. Especially my oldest son, it's really exact.
So often when I bring up flower essences in a consultation, people are a little bit, they don't really know. I'll talk about their keynote first. And I'll often, I have the textbook and I'll say, oh, I really think some flower essences could work with you, just to help bring some balance with your emotions. Have a read of this and tell me if you can relate to it. And I'll give them their keynote description. And this sort of helps me figure out if they're open to taking them or not. They'll either read it and go, oh yeah, oh my God, wow, that's freaky. Or they'll read it and go, oh yeah, not so much now though. You know, maybe when I was a child, but you know, not so much now. And it gives an in to start bringing up the topic of flower essences and vibrational medicine, because it's not going to be everybody's thing. There's belief systems that people have that it's a little bit, it's too weird, or it's not in line with their belief systems or the church or that kind of thing. With the astrology base in there as well, that can be a bit of a put off for some people. Yeah.
So how you see that if you, for example, the young lady that was living with you, because he didn't know he was taking them, it didn't have such a good effect. What if the person doesn't believe in it? Will it still not have as good an effect?
I don't really know, because I haven't really given it to anybody who didn't believe it or wasn't into it.
Okay.
You know, oh yeah, I think you need to get their consent. If they're, oh yeah, I'll give it a go, then oh yeah, give it a go. But if they're not really, they're like, oh no, that's too weird, or oh no, that homeopathy stuff, that's all rubbish, then you do some other stuff. Yeah.
There's people that are on the cusp of the year now, and they will just for your study purpose be kind enough to you to take 3 weeks of drops. Ask their environment if anything's changed with that person, because if they don't see it themselves, they just can't be polite when they don't want to. The people around them will probably see changes or differences or shifts, and then they can tell that person, well, actually, you've been a lot nicer, or you've been a lot less annoying, or and then coins will start to drop for them as well. So you can always ask your family, how you can a nicer person, or more balanced, or less irritated,
Or you can also, that's often why we give you guys that measurement of the pain scales, for example, with the massage. You can have a stress scale, or on a scale of 1 to 10, how irritated do you feel about this issue? And they'll give you their number, because it's a subjective thing, right? So you want to get their viewpoint. And then at your follow-up, or when you catch up with them next, ask them how irritated they are about that same thing on that scale of 1 to 10, and that'll give you a solid measure point, which just isn't someone else's opinion, it's their own feelings about it. Can be another way to go about it.
That's what I was saying the day, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I just have a quick question, because you were saying, you know, how sometimes people will read things and then they no longer relate to it, something from their childhood. Would you say that it then evolved past the point of needing that keynote flower, and you wouldn't?
I put it in anyway. Yeah, I put it in anyway. I just think it's so useful. And the reason why you might not resonate with it so much anymore would be, I mean, you as an adult, you develop skills, and you learn how to communicate, and you learn how to kind of manage yourself and your environment, I suppose. So that can be another reason why those sort of challenging aspects of a essence might not really relate to you anymore. Yeah. So if there's room, put it in.
I have a question. So if you've got
if you've got a particular negative, characteristic or something it's just really, really there in your personality, can you just start turning down in your keynote and that's just going to dilute the actions?
It's going to bring balance. Yeah.
I mean, needed by the leader.
I mean, those challenges can still be there in times of stress when you revert back to that kind of, revert back to those reactive kind of non-thoughtful responses that we can have. We're humans, we live in the real world, yeah? So we can't always be the positive manifestation of our keynote as much as we'd love to be. But also, by looking at those positive and negative characteristics, you get that awareness and you do come to see, you get to know yourself better. Laura's saying that she was like, when I lose my sense of humour, that's when I know that things aren't working for me. That can be the point that you know that, okay, time to make some change, whether it's essences or meditation or drinking more water or just saying no thanks to a few things for a while. That can be...
that's my barometer.
You can't say no. Christy, I noticed on there there's no February 29.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 people in my family who are 29 Feb.
That's a good point.
Yeah, do we go the 28th of Feb or the 1st of March?
Go both. Yeah, I mean, you talk to that person and see if you only had room in your blend for one of those 2 choices, then talk with your client about which one that they identify with more strongly. One of the other things I do in consult, because often when you're taking someone's case, there'll be times when people get upset and they have emotional reactions and they're crying and there's a lot of experiences that people have that when they share them can be quite emotional for them. So you're going to get people in your clinic that cry. So it's good to have a little bit of a strategy that can help them feel safe and can also minimise the discomfort that you might experience too. Because it can be, I remember the first few times it happened to me, I was like, what do I do? We never talked about this. So one of the things that I like to do, you'll get a sense, you'll know if somebody's sort of on the verge of or not from what you observe. So what I do at that point is I'll sort of, like I talked about with massage, to hand them the tissues, to take the focus point off them. I'll hand them the chart and say, have a read through, I've put it onto that negative characteristic. I work mostly with those because I think that's why people are coming to see you. They're having a challenge, that's where you're going to be most effective, not really enhancing positive stuff. You're going to be more effective bringing down those negative aspects. So I encourage you to focus on those. So I would say to them, is there anything here you can identify with what you're feeling now? Because it's hard to articulate when you're upset, and you kind of probably feel like a bit of a dick having a cry in the practitioner's office as well. Some people can. So rather than have them verbalise and get upset on it, I pass them the chart and I say, just mark on there which ones you feel like you can relate to right now. And by then they're kind of like, right, okay, they've got something to do, they're focusing on, that, oh yeah, oh God, there might be some solutions here. Oh, and they can kind of calm down. So that's one way that I work with somebody to select essences for them and let them do it. Yeah. Some people want you to do it. That's okay too. You probably, as you get to know the essences, they become like characters. So, and the more that you'll identify a keynote with someone, with yourself or whoever you'll be, oh yeah, and kind of, you get a bit of a sense of their character. So when they're talking and they say certain things, I just feel so overwhelmed right now. I just, can't really, it's all too much. It's all happening at once. Then that's a really good indication that no matter how, number 29 would be good. So you can kind of think, right, okay, that's the good one. And that could be one that you might start talking about, or you give them the description to read, or those are some ways you can choose them. There's another way, we've got these cards here, that if anyone wants to use those, when you guys pair up and do your consult with each other, then some people get others to select cards, and I found that can be quite effective. Some people won't be open to that at all, and that's fine, but that can be another way that you can select essences or think about ones, I hadn't thought about that, but that's actually really relevant, can be another way.
Children find mine go with the cards really well.
Oh, the pictures.
Just stick on chalk,
Yeah.
strip them up, and I'll just, unbelievably confident they'll just pick out exactly that one. I've also done with the bark flowers, I've just given them the entire set. So just pick a bottle, it's remarkable what they choose. They're so in tune, there's no, they're not like sure they're not adults.
They're not analysing it,
like we have. They will pick the right remedy for themselves, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I even remember being a kid going in and picking a bark flower, and the way that was chosen was just me looking at a poster, and she said choose the flowers that you feel most attracted to, and that was quite helpful as well.
You can't really do it wrong. You're not going to hurt anyone. The only way you can do it wrong is if you choose one that's less effective, or that's not seen to be as effective as another. And if in an assessment situation where you asked in the exam or whatever to choose a flower essence for this person's case and explain why, always make sure you explain why, because that's where your knowledge is going to come in. If you just put a flower essence, I can't remember, Ko-Fi, then yeah, cool, but nah. Because what we need to see is the explanation, and that you actually understand and can link Ko-Fi's action to something that's going on in the case. So always put an explanation as to why. With the assessment, we have a certain threshold of incorrect answers that students give that they would have to do the resubmission. So they're considered less appropriate and not really applicable to the sentence that we give. But in reality, you've got a human being in front of you, and you can ask them questions. You can ask, so if say, for example, that we'll do some cases soon, it'll become a lot clearer, but if somebody's anxious, well, can you tell me what you're anxious about? Oh, not really, I just feel like there's this impending doom. There's a specific essence for that. But if they were anxious about a 5-hour drive, then there's a specific essence for specific fears. Yeah. So that's how it can help you choose. So the main issue is anxiety, but what kind? You can kind of whittle it down that way. But yeah, we'll do some cases together as a group, and I'll kind of give you some prompters and some ideas on how you can remember them, and that'll help make it a lot clearer. Has anyone got any questions before we start getting into that? Do it. Yeah, all right.
Okay.
So we've got Dave here, and he is a bus driver. He's got some eczema. He's tried a lot of stuff over the years, but nothing much has really worked. And he's pretty bummed out about it, and he's sort of he's trying to hide the eczema on his hands. So have a look at your notes and bits and pieces, and just pop your hand up, and we'll talk about some of the things you suggest.
Definitely. Can we just call them out or no?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't hear very well, and particularly in here, it's a bit of an echoey room. So I'll try and hear you if you call it out.
No, it's alright. It's alright. It's more right.
I'm hearing some good things. You got a birth date there, so that's always a good start. Yeah. Can anybody see how that would relate to other parts of the case?
Oh yeah, I was going to take that one anyway. So he's just kept on apologising for what his hands look like.
Yeah, self-blame.
And also that small white rat. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, that's also really good for that self-dislike. And the way you can remember that, or a good way to remember that, and it's also about people that are quite obsessed with cleanliness or tiny details that don't really, on the giant perspective of things, really mean much, and they can be quite intolerant. So this one, I always remember it as, this is Michael Jackson's keynote, Small White Rata, and I remember it because he's got that white glove. So if somebody's kind of a little bit obsessive about things real detail. Like he wore that mask for quite a while with bacteria, and he's a little bit weird. He's quite a extreme example of that Akapero, small white rata kind of picture. But that might be able to help you remember, his character might be able to help you remember this essence for people that you come across who are quite obsessed with that sort of perfectionist type thing.
With number 21, like it would be down the list because it's probably self-doubt and he's seeking others' approval, like he's worried about what other people are thinking.
Yeah, possibly.
I thought maybe Manuka for frustration and insecurity.
Manuka. Exactly. Manuka's a really good one for frustration. There's a couple of them that are when somebody says, I'm just so bloody annoyed about it, really frustrated, then Manuka's one of those for sure. It's, just trying to find it here so I can tell you a bit more about it. What number is that? 22?
Manuka 22.
Yeah, frustration. It can often be frustration at things that they can't really influence themselves, rather than self-frustration. Yeah, and being Dave, he's tried a lot of stuff and it hasn't really. There's nothing he feels he can do about it. Yeah.
So with no 30, maybe as well, because he's lost hope and he's feeling despair.
I'd be asking him about that because he's come to see a practitioner.
Yeah.
He's come to see someone about his issue, and yeah, I mean, if you'd lost hope, you probably wouldn't do that. But a question you'd ask would be, a question you could ask somebody to determine whether or not they're feeling that they're hopeless.
Yeah.
You'd say, how do you see your future with this, or do you see this in your future? Can be a way that you can determine which one. So I probably wouldn't go with that in this instance, but you'd ask, yeah.
Maybe the number 2 as well, the native flex, where it's kind of frustration and irritability with the situation as well.
That's the other frustration one, yeah, native flax. But he's sort of, in reading that, it's not been obvious that he's frustrated in that kind of impatient sort of way. If you were thinking about native flax, there'd be that kind of, just want it to go. Sick of it. There'd be that kind of frustration.
Stress then, I was also looking at lace bark then for the desperation and availability and hope, but that also seemed a bit extreme.
It could well be. You'd be questioning about that, definitely. Lace bark's a pretty, person's usually at the end of their, with that. Often lace bark is for when somebody's mentioning they've got some self-harm thoughts, or I just want to drive my car into that wall, or it's that kind of place that somebody's in with lace bark. But definitely be asking about it. It's a bit hard because it's just a paper case, Go ahead.
When you talk about how instantly you can think of personalities that you know in your head, like that Manuka, because I've thought about family members that's been doing these. My father-in-law, Manuka, I was like, oh my God, I so have to give him some of that, because now that I've read it, jealousy, hatred, insecurity, he gets really angry about things on TV and in the news, suspicious, negative attitude. He's got gates to the house. He calls them the terrorist gates.
Oh,
He's a terrorist now.
Delightful. You can remember Manuka. This is how I did as a student. Nuka, someone who's nuking out. They're just flipping out and angry and annoyed about usually other people, because they're fine, right? But yeah, that can help you remember Manuka. Someone's nuking out. They're flipping out. They're angry. They're having an outburst, whether it be rage or jealousy or whatever it's from. Yeah.
The Nova Rock Daisy, that one's for some reason I'm drawn to.
Yes.
Self-worth,
Timid,
nervous, shy. So how it says fear of the unknown things, we can ignore that part because it has the timid and shy and etc.
Ignore the known things.
Etc. Timid, shy. So we can use that one.
Where are we?
It's number 4.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Self-worth.
Yes.
Anxious apprehension of fear of unknown things,
Got
but
ya.
also timid, shy, nervous, and stage fright. So that's one.
So Marlborough Rock Daisy is applicable. There's some anxiety there. He's distressed about it. I'd probably be directly asking him, is it something that creates anxiety for you? Then, and if he said yes, then certainly be using it. So anyone who's freaked out about anything, a bit scared, worried, this is one of the first essences that I ever bought to have in stock, just because it's so widely used. Marlborough Rock Daisy for stuff that you know you're freaked out about, and the other one for anxiety that you can't really put your finger on, but you just feel quite anxious all the time, is Hecatata, number 20, probably number 34. Number 34, Hecatata, if you don't really know why you're anxious, but you are, whereas this one, rock solid, you know what you're anxious about. Yeah. Okay, so I've got one on my list that hasn't quite come up yet, so I'll share that with you guys, and that is number 9, that's Koru. So Koru is really, I quite like it. This is one of the other ones that I got in stock early in clinic to use, because if you think of the Koru shape, it's like a pathway. And Koru is really applicable for people who they keep doing the same old stuff over and over. They might go for the same shitty relationship, or they might go for the same sort of job, but they don't like it. It doesn't work for them. It's not a good thing. But they keep following that same path. So Koru, it helps people when they're wanting to make changes. And the reason this could apply to Dave is because he's been prescribed these various